there's a lot of work to be done in dementia research. We need to better characterize risk factors, molecular mechanisms, provide targets at which to aim new treatments. I'm particularly interested in two areas of dementia research. One is what it will take to more rapidly evaluate the range of promising but unproven prevention therapies so that we have the best fighting chance to find a treatment that works within the next 10 years. No guarantee that we'll get there, but I think we have a chance. Second, I think we have a woefully inadequate standard of care for patients and family caregivers afflicted by dementia. I think we have an opportunity with the emerging changes in the healthcare financing system, for instance, those changes that are happening in the United States, to be able to provide a more comprehensive standard of care where a greater number of individuals with memory and thinking problems have an evaluation in the first place, where everybody is followed through the course of their illness so that we better address both the medical and non-medical needs of patients and family caregivers. And we do it in a way that actually might save dollars along the way and provide incentives to grow a culture of dementia care that we don't have right now, even as we're trying to find a way to eradicate this devastating problem. So my Alzheimer's prevention initiative colleagues and I are very excited about this new era in Alzheimer's prevention research. We've long argued that until now it's taken too many healthy volunteers and too many years to evaluate promising but unproven prevention therapies, such that we, until now, have really not had a chance to find ones that work. We think there are a number of steps that are being taken now to more rapidly evaluate the range of promising prevention therapies. And if one works today, one of the promising but not yet proven treatments actually works, I believe that we have a chance to find a treatment to postpone, reduce, or completely prevent the clinical onset of Alzheimer's disease within 10 years. Before this new era in prevention research, I would suggest we had a 0% chance of finding that, even if a treatment existed, because it would just be impractical and take too long to find one that works. Now that the scientific means and approval pathway is developing in Alzheimer's research, I would suggest that we may have about a 40 to 50% chance of finding a treatment to dramatically reduce the clinical onset of Alzheimer's disease within the next 10 years. And I think it's very important to have a goal like that to promote a sense of urgency and galvanize the effort. At the same time, for credibility, we have to understand what the caveats are. We need to continue this sense of urgency. We need this continued funding. We need a more diversified approach to the treatment and prevention of Alzheimer's disease. We need treatments that actually work. Even if we do not find a way to prevent the clinical onset of Alzheimer's disease within 10 years, we'll be that much more close to doing so just by the nature of the endeavor over the next 10 years. But it is my personal hope that we'll be able to find a treatment to dramatically reduce the clinical onset of Alzheimer's disease before I retire. So let me speak to collaboration more generally. Everything my colleagues and I do involves collaboration. It involves collaboration locally, it involves collaboration nationally, and it involves collaboration on the international level. We have argued that collaboration is not only the right thing to do, but it's the strategically right thing to do, because by working together, we can capitalize on complementary resources, complementary expertise, complementary data sets and biological samples to do together things that none of us could do on their own. The new era of science is by definition collaborative. And I'll give you two examples from our own research. We have had a long-standing interest in launching this new era of prevention research by conducting prevention trials of promising but unproven anti-amyloid treatments in cognitively unimpaired individuals who are virtually certain to develop autosomal dominant early onset Alzheimer's disease. And a question we asked is, where on earth would we find enough people to do a sufficiently large prevention trial? And that took us to Medellin, Colombia, where Dr. Francisco Lopera and his colleagues have been following the world's largest early onset autosomal dominant Alzheimer's kindred. A kindred involving 5,000 distant relatives, including more than 1,000 living relatives who have a gene that makes them virtually certain to develop Alzheimer's disease in their 40s and 50s. That opportunity would not exist. The opportunity to extend this work now to people who, based on their age and genetic background, are at risk for the more common form of Alzheimer's disease that occur at older ages, individuals with 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene. We're excited about launching a new prevention trial in many sites across 3 continents by working together to find enough people and to do these studies in the right way. It's very important. In addition to the research collaboration itself, international collaboration has other goals. As we chart new territory, for instance, in developing this new era in prevention research, it involves a tremendous amount of consensus building and lessons learned that need to be generated across different cultures and countries to move the ball forward. And finally, this issue of advocacy and working towards this goal of having everyone involved together in this fight against Alzheimer's disease. There's additional momentum that comes from efforts like the G7 or the efforts from one country taking a leadership role to get others to come together. When it comes to this fight against Alzheimer's disease, we're all in it together. So we're proud to say that in our prevention trials, we have commitment from our industry partners, Genentech and our Alzheimer's Prevention Initiative study of patients, individuals with autosomal dominant Alzheimer's disease, and with Novartis in our collaborative study of people who carry 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene, a commitment to release the data and samples from these trials after the trials are over, and indeed, in some cases, some baseline data even before then. We think that that additional data and biological samples can help the field find even faster ways to test prevention therapies, to learn more about the biological factors that are associated with subsequent cognitive decline, the features that might predict a differential response to treatment. There is too much work to be done from any data set for one group to do. And the more we can share our own data with others, the more our goals and other goals, the goals of others will be addressed. And whenever I am asking a new scientific question, I ask myself if I can't address it in my data set, who might have that data set so that we could address that problem as quickly as possible? Data sharing is an essential part of the future of science. So when I was growing up, my mom always told me that life isn't a dress rehearsal. And I agree with that on both a professional and personal basis. But when I first entered research, I got some wonderful advice about how to launch a research career. And one of my previous mentors had suggested, when it comes to launching a successful research career, choose a mentor with a track record of productivity and cutting-edge methodological skills that I could learn. Choose one who is genuinely interested in promoting my career development. And in my particular case, they suggested look into PET. The lab that I was considering invented this technology, and it worked awfully well for us. I want to come back to this issue of collaboration, actually, that we brought up before. There's one other advantage of collaboration that we have loved over the years. And that is the opportunity to work with researchers from different scientific disciplines. Brain imaging, genomics, the computational and mathematical analysis of complex data sets, the basic cognitive and behavioral neurosciences, experimental therapeutics, neuropathology research. Bringing groups of individuals with complementary strengths together to address a problem more effectively than we can do on our own. We've been particularly interested in this idea of a push-pull relationship in research, where somebody who has an interesting question, a behavioral scientist, asks a question that we don't quite have the methods to address as fully as we like. So we bring in individuals with complementary methodological strengths to develop even better methods to address that question. And we find after we're able to do that, we can ask a better question still with some of those methods. And I think that's an essential part of the advancement of science, this opportunity to ask new questions, address them for the first time with new methods, and move the field forward. You know, if I think about advice I would like to give to students for the first time who may be sitting in a science class frustrated with learning scientific facts, I'd like to suggest that's not what science is about. Science is about the joy of asking a question for the first time that you could address, that other people could not in the past. The joy of science is testing a hypothesis and finding out your hypothesis was correct. And the joy is coming up with an totally unexpected finding that leads you to scratch your head and think about new directions that you hadn't anticipated before. And finally, science is the opportunity to do all that in a way that can make a difference in people's lives. When I think about developing a research career, when I think about education, I think of value in having a focused plan and pursuing it with vigor, but understanding that life happens and plans change, and that what you end up doing down the road may not be what you planned originally, but every step along the way, having some plan in mind, I found to be particularly helpful.